Ata mārie hōma. Welcome to day 14. It's Wednesday. Also my notes tell me, Wednesday the 8th of April. I wanted to start this morning by acknowledging all of the people, as I have done actually in previous live streams like this in the morning, Morena, Hannah, who all of the people who are having their birthdays during this lockdown period. It's one thing to be in a space where we're in self-isolation and having to change our day-to-day routines, but coming up against something the one day in the year where you are being celebrated for, existing for another year, particularly by all of your friends and whānau, and not necessarily being in a space where you're able to connect with them, particularly physically, can be challenging. So happy birthday to all of the April babies, and I hope that maybe we throw a good old community party after all of this is done. Morena, Emma, Morena, Rowan. We've got my old mate Neeraj Dutt here. Neeraj, I went to law school with. Morena, Billy. I also want to give a shout out because she very much would absolutely love it if I did, but is not one to shy away from attention ever, to my friend Johanna Cosgrove, who is having, I think, her 28th or 29th birthday today, 29th birthday. It's her 29th birthday today, 28th birthday today. Happy 28th birthday, Johanna. She is a brilliant comedian who created the character of Auntie. I'm not sure if you've seen it. She wears the little speedy shades and the towel on her head, and is as though she's from rural New Zealand, and unfortunately her, along with a bunch of other brilliant creatives and comedians, had their shows cancelled, particularly for Comedy Fest, because of COVID-19. Shout out to all of the creatives, shout out to Johanna Cosgrove, and shout out to the innovation and Kiwi ingenuity that has kept us all entertained while we have been in lockdown over the past 2 weeks. I also wanted to point this morning to something that it's worthwhile kind of remembering as we're all in this day 14. It's day 14 of the Alert Level 4 lockdown or Rahui for the nation, but I personally have been in lockdown now for about 21 or 22 or 23 days now. So I have come to grips, I must say. It was a real challenge in the first 2 weeks, but in this third week in particular, I've really come to grips with the routine. And I can promise you that things do get easier the further along you get in this bizarre experience. And I was for a little while there beating myself up, and I'm only sharing this because it might help a few of you, I don't know. Then again, you are tuned into the live stream. Let me know what you'd like me to talk about if it's not this. But I was beating myself up for a little while about having gone into lockdown and having set myself all of these goals and tasks, particularly when it came to exercise. And funnily enough, I've found myself exercising a lot less in self-isolation and physical isolation than I had been outside of it. I come from a background of having done martial arts, karate for 7 years, then Muay Thai for 2.5 years. So come at me if you ever want to. No, don't come at me. One of the core Green Party tenets or charter principles is non-violence. But I then got into running and then into weightlifting. And it's been a real challenge readjusting and trying to find, whether it's running or bodyweight exercises or whatever that I want to concern myself with while here in self-isolation. And I found myself not really being in a headspace, ironically knowing that I would be in a better headspace if I did do the exercise. But I just want to remind everybody that unfortunately, as hard as we try, we're not going to walk out of Alert Level 4 looking like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Don't be too hard on yourself when it comes to setting goals for things that you thought you might be able to do. These are really unprecedented and precarious times, and nobody knew how they were going to respond. Literally the whole world right now is dealing with and absorbing the change that is a worldwide pandemic. So one of the things that's helped me, again, not sure if it'll help you, but it has been where I don't necessarily feel that sense of motivation just to move a little bit. So getting outside and going for a walk around the block is a really useful way to start, and just to kind of get your blood moving and to refresh your mental health. Also remember, when you're inside all day, to open a window. It is really important for your mental health and your physical health to get some fresh air in there. Timothy is asking, what's the story behind the picture on the wall behind me? So yeah, this is quite different, Jane. This is, as those of you who've been tuning into these for a while now will know, every other day I try and change the art from a very limited number of pieces that are in this apartment. And this is one of the pieces that kind of struck me this morning when I was making my coffee as something that I could chuck up on the wall. It belongs on the fridge and is a interesting abstract piece of artwork. You can see my name in there, Chloe. It's reversed because unfortunately I still haven't figured out the mirroring thing on this live stream. But it's got glitter on it, it's got cutouts from magazines. It's by my 4-year-old friend Pia. You may be aware of, no offense, it looks like a child did it. A child did do it. It was my 4-year-old friend Pia. So today, instead of showcasing established artwork, I am showcasing the career of up-and-coming contemporary artist Pia, whose mother is Turameki Harrington, the awesome contemporary artist who you may have seen the banana with the pink backgrounds that I've had in other live streams. If you're interested in listening to any of those other rants on earlier live streams, I've chucked in my videos section on my Facebook page. You can go back through all of them and basically just freeze frame on the ones with the art behind me, because I always chuck links to the artists in the comments below. Yes to air outside, agree, Owain. Emily, be kind with the expectations of yourself, everyone, and also remember that expectations do and can change. Sorry, I just hit the chair with my ring. I love that Kirsten loves the changing artwork. Amy, shout out to my friend Amy Ralphany, who is watching right now and just said that Pia is talented. Amy runs a little organisation called Artache. I met her back on BFM several years ago, and she works with and helps curate and produce art exhibitions and shows. She's an artist herself but hasn't practiced for a while. I think she's actually thinking of doing some kind of art classes for kids via live streaming or something. Amy, you let us know what you're planning on doing. But Amy, who is trained in contemporary art, reckons that Pia is talented. So Pia's talented. I just wanted to say as well, another thing to be really cognizant of in this time, alongside being kind to yourself and letting those expectations change, is that you need something to look forward to. Someone was referring to how I was checking my notes on what the day is, and that's true. You know, the days can kind of meld together. It is not particularly obvious unless you're walking outside or coming across other folks that right now today is Wednesday, nor is it necessarily particularly obvious when it's Friday or when it's Saturday or when it's Sunday, but having something to look forward to is a really good way to help frame things up in your mind so every day doesn't feel like Groundhog Day. And one of the things that you could be looking forward to right now is Easter coming up this weekend. You'll be aware that the Prime Minister has started a nationwide Easter hunt and sent everybody, well, you're able to download it, an Easter egg that you can colour in and stick in your window, so that there's a nationwide Easter egg hunt for all of the tamariki across the country. But, you know, I probably wouldn't know Easter was coming up but for the fact that my partner has Animal Crossing, and I don't know if any of you have Animal Crossing, but there is a lot of Easter stuff going on right now. I don't understand the game anyway. So something to look forward to is definitely Easter and that time off. If you are an essential worker in particular, but also if you are somebody at home with your kids, finding something to break from the routine that you've found here in self-isolation and alert level 4 lockdown, I think would be awesome. But also share your ideas in the comments below. Paul, yes, day 14, halfway through. What day is it for me by now, Debo? I think it's day 21 or it's day 22 or day 23. I went into self-isolation about 8 or 9 days before the country did, so I'd have to count it, and that would probably take way too long on this live stream. Matthew is saying, loving the changing artwork. Thanks, mate. I particularly love today's artwork by 4-year-old artist Pia. She's up and coming, and as you can see, her preferred mediums are glitter and cutouts from magazines. Matthew's also saying, however, what do you think of Spain's proposal to introduce a UBI, which is a permanent beyond the effects of COVID-19? I think it's brilliant. I think that the greater evidence base that we can build for the efficacy of a universal basic income is fantastic. For those of you who aren't aware, in 2017, during the general election, the Greens effectively ran on a platform of introducing what is better perhaps known as a guaranteed basic income. So the distinction between a guaranteed basic income and universal basic income is that a universal basic income is doled out to everybody. A guaranteed basic income basically says, on the basis of need, anybody who requires a top-up in order to not fall below a floor, which we would deem as poverty, is able to have access to that help and support. It's a simpler way to facilitate it and more cost-effective until we manage to get to that point of amassing the required political mandate to change the tax system to pay for something like a universal basic income. We ran on that and we called it mending the safety net. One of the classic things, or classic, I say classic is kind of a throwaway colloquialism, but unfortunate things that we found in running this mending the welfare safety net campaign is that there is still so much stigma towards people who are receiving the benefit. And it's super gutting. I saw, after I shared my article that I wrote for Stuff this past weekend about the kind of world that we could be walking into subsequent to the reset of COVID-19 and the opportunity that we have to break away from the normal that we knew, which had entrenched hierarchies of inequality and otherwise. There were a few folks saying stuff like, oh, that just means everyone should go on the benefit. Firstly, not at all what I was saying. Secondly, there is tons of different types of work that everybody across society does that is not compensated adequately or properly for the contribution that it makes to all of us. Think, for example, right now of all of the essential workers who under normalcy, and even right now, to be honest, are not paid adequately, the living wage even, for what they are contributing to upholding the rest of us, to getting on with our lives. So Matthew, to your point, I'm absolutely behind it. And I know, for example, that Marama Davidson, the co-leader of the Greens, has received a petition calling for this to happen in effect in Aotearoa, New Zealand. So I think you'd find that the Green Party is largely on board and that perhaps energy should be spent in other areas. Hannah is saying, not gonna lie, the only way I differentiate the days now is what time their streams are. The weekly streams, the weekday streams rather, at 8:10 in the morning, and the weekend streams are at 12 noon. And typically I have a little bit more time to rant and talk about stuff on the weekend streams. Not sure how much value this is providing to all of your lives, but there's still approximately 190 of you tuned in. So let me know if there's anything in particular that you want to talk about. Rowan's saying Animal Crossing actually tells me the day of the week. Well, there you go. I would offer up my partner's little code thing, but I'm sure I'd be in a lot of trouble for doing so. Frederick Alva is asking, favourite movie ever? My favourite movie ever is really showcases what an absolute nerd I am, but it is Campaign. It is the film that I streamed with the director and producer of said film on my Facebook page like a week ago. It is about the first ever MMP election in Aotearoa, New Zealand, and focuses on the Wellington Central electorate. And oh man, it's just got some classic Kiwi moments, It's so good. Emily Shave is saying that they've started fostering animals in need. I tried to foster a greyhound before we went into lockdown. For those of you who aren't aware, I have had to go into lockdown in Wellington, not in my home of Auckland, which is also why I have even more limited art than I otherwise would, because I came back to Wellington with the intention of going to Parliament on Tuesday, and then had to come into lockdown because I'd come from Australia from a long planned family wedding, and I've since been in the Wellington apartment. Thought that it'd be a great idea to foster a greyhound, but unfortunately everybody else seemed to have that idea. So I missed out, but I'm also stoked that all of those greyhounds got a home. Linda is saying, Emily, I rang SPCA and Cat Protection Refoster and they said they didn't need me, had enough, wanted to. How cool is that though, that all of these Kiwis right now looking to help not only each other but those animals that don't have a home right now. It is just, I think it's best summarised in something that was said by George Monbiot, who's a regular progressive writer for The Guardian, who said that all of the horror movies got it wrong. This virus hasn't turned us into monsters, but instead has turned us into caring and compassionate neighbours. How cool is that? It really is indicative of how we have control over our destiny, folks. Paul is saying Pia is another infamous Littletonian, very up and coming. Absolutely. You may, if you've been following me on Instagram or Facebook for a while, recognise Pia from her art bat show that she hosted and curated out of her bedroom in order to fundraise money for the bats that were lost their lives in the fires in Australia. Pia is an incredible young artist and curator with a huge heart and a brilliant mother. My favourite story about Pia, her mum is Tarameki Harrington, who's a great contemporary artist. And Tui can make everything. Like, she taught me how to make gnocchi, and she knows how to make boots, and she can make like furniture as well as art and stuff from scratch. But anyway, Pia learnt from Tui to call everything contemporary art. So Pia will see a piece of rubbish or flotsam and jetsam on the side of the road and go, that's contemporary art. Or just, anything is contemporary art through Pia's eyes, which I absolutely love. Renee is saying, I hope once life returns to normal, people appreciate our supermarket workers and other essential workers. I absolutely hope so. And this has been my point, which I'll leave as my final point, kind of from the get-go, right? And it's something which we all have an opportunity to reflect on right now. But it's that right now there is a break from normalcy. And while that can be really distressing, primarily because it leaves us with a hole of the certainty or ways of doing things that we used to take for granted, it offers us a massive opportunity to reflect on where there were inequities or inequalities and to say, actually, we don't want to go back to that. Actually, we've recognised here the grassroots power of communities to connect with each other and to make things happen themselves. And we've seen that stuff like housing the homeless, we've seen that things like providing better and more stable incomes for our most impoverished weren't politically impossible, they were simply a matter of political willpower. And that's what politics is, folks. I'm as earnest as ever, but politics is literally just about people making decisions. And I think in a country like Aotearoa, New Zealand, where somebody like me, who was a high school dropout with tattoos, who swears too much, can get into our House of Representatives, anybody can. And that's kind of the point. And that's a brilliant, brilliant thing that we still have such an egalitarian system that we can change things if we want to. We have a population the size of Melbourne in this beautiful country and 2 degrees of separation. If we talk to each other and we work together, anything can change. Kia kaha. We'll see you all again tomorrow at 8:10. Please have a beautiful Wednesday and make sure that you stay home, save lives, and be kind.